Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute since I posted. I think it's been 8 or 9 months. For my first video back, I thought I would give you guys my testimony video. This is definitely a different video. I've never done anything like this on my channel, but I decided to come back and be open and vulnerable with you guys. First off, if you guys don't know what a testimony is, it's basically me just sharing my life story, how I came to know God, what he's brought me through, and how he's changed my life. Testimonies are actually very powerful. They're here to show you how God is still working today. The Lord has definitely gave me confirmation to share this with you guys over and over, and I did not want to do it. I tried about a year ago and I felt like this was just coming from emotion, so I didn't want to speak on things when it was just going to be my emotions speaking, if that makes sense. I wanted to come from a good heart, a good place, healed version Destiny. So here I am. Funny thing is, I actually did not want to share my testimony video with you guys because I feel like it's so personal and intimate, and a lot of things that happened to me in private that I don't want to talk about openly, but this is definitely an act of obedience. A lot of people have come to me that I've shared my story with and said that this has helped them so much, and I know that even if this can help one or two of you guys out, then that is all that matters. Also, stay tuned, more content coming up. Finally feel like this is a good start to refresh my channel and start all over again. So for any of you guys don't know me, hi, my name is Destiny and I'm 24 years old. I was gonna say 23, but I just turned 24 and I feel like I'm so old. So I am gonna go back to growing up and how I was raised so you guys can understand my character now. I grew up in such a loving home. My mom and dad are both Christian and my dad's actually a pastor. So I grew up always in church, attending pretty much church every Sunday and Thursdays or Wednesdays. Our home was very Christ-like, and we had a foundation built on God. I'm gonna just be honest, my sister and I had the best childhood ever. We had no trauma. Everything was so beautiful and pure. My mom showed us so much love. My dad, was a good dad and is still a good dad. I can't really say anything about my childhood because it was pretty much the best childhood I can ever ask for. We would pray every time we would eat. We would only listen to Christian music in the car or at home. So that's all I pretty much knew. My mom and dad are definitely not perfect, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. And if you guys ever heard my dad's testimony, it's actually insane. Like, he used to be a bad kid. He changed. He's a changed man. I really want you guys to hear his story, so maybe one day I will have him on here to tell you guys. Pretty much, my parents planted the seed into my sister and I's heart, so we knew of Christ. We knew it was right. We knew it was wrong. Nothing really happened much in my teens. I know my uncle passed away, and that's when I was introduced to the fear of death. I started fearing death. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but I was super scared to die because someone close to me had passed away. I was scared to die. I don't know why, but I just had that fear in me. The same year my uncle passed, I got in 3 car accidents all in 1 year. So that definitely put more fear into me. But it still wasn't like extreme. It was bad, but it just wasn't extreme. I think that's probably the first time I ever experienced some type of anxiety, which I didn't know what anxiety was at the time. So that pretty much sums up my teen years. I mean, I had a relationship that I was in for almost 4 years. I dated my best friend when he had broken up with me. He left me for another girl. That's when I first ever turned on worship music, and it was Reckless Love by Corey Osbury. I remember that was the first time that I ever turned on worship music because I was so sad. I remember I just wanted to feel some type of peace, which is crazy because that's still one of my favorite songs today. And I can't even tell you guys why I turned on worship music, because at the time I wouldn't even read the Bible. I was literally a teenager, not even focusing on God. I had no relationship with God. There's a huge difference between knowing God and having a relationship with him. I was a teenager in high school, was not listening. I actually never cuss, drink, or smoke in my entire life. My sister and I did not do that stuff. And thinking back at that time, it brings me to Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Meaning, since my parents planted the seeds in my sister and I when we were young, when we grew up and we had some troubles of our own, we always ran to God. We didn't know why, but that was the first thing that we would go to because that is how we were raised. So it is very important, if you have children, plant that seed. I do want to say though, it wasn't always like that. Sadly, I did run to the world, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I'm almost there. Moving on to my 20s, and this is when my entire life changed. So I was living in a small town in Washington State, you know, just living my little life over there. I always had a passion for social media and there was nothing really to do in a small town. And I started doing YouTube videos on my own. I would do makeup videos in like high school, but I would delete them because I would be embarrassed and they were so cringe and embarrassing. I also would do Musical.ly that eventually turned into TikTok and Instagram. I remember I started posting reels when it just popped off, and pretty much any app there was, I was on there. I would make Vines when I was like 13, 14 years old. Rest in peace, Vine. We miss you. And I remember I started doing good for myself when I was like 20 years old. I remember I would post reels. I don't know how, but I just know I was so consistent on posting. I wouldn't even hang out with my friends because of how much I wanted to post. I also would want to make content with my friends, but they wouldn't want to because they were so embarrassed, because if you know and you live in a small town, everyone makes fun of you. But I didn't care who made fun of me because I just knew what I wanted and I knew that I love social media and I did not care. So eventually I met a guy in LA. I think like the third time we had hung out, I ended up moving in with him, which was insane to me because I've never left my parents' house. I was always, you know, depending on them. I moved states for a guy. It's actually crazy to think back because I had just met this guy and I was so deeply in love with him that I just moved in with him because he asked me, and I was like, why not? And I was always so dependent on my parents because I lived with them all my life that now I had to be independent, which I was super happy about. I lived in LA, you know, I love LA. I always wanted to live in LA, and you know, I was with the man of my dreams at the time. We had so much fun together. It was like probably the funnest time of my life. I cannot explain how much fun I had with this man. He did everything right in the beginning. Everything was beautiful, perfect, fun, puppy love. The first few months were beautiful, and I remember, I think it was around the 3rd month mark, an incident where, you know, his cat would pee on his bed, and I remember he like abused this cat very bad. I was in the restroom, but I heard it because I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel comfortable to tell him anything, but I just remember he had left and I had checked on the cat because I just heard the cat like practically yelling. I remember the little poor baby's eye was bleeding, and I brought him in the restroom with me and I was like, oh, you're safe with me, and I started crying and I called my mom and I was like, Mom, he literally hurt this cat and I don't know what to do. But I didn't even think of leaving him. I didn't even see that as a red flag. I did not. I overlooked everything because of how deeply in love I was with this man. So I guess that was the first biggest red flag that I overlooked that I really wish that I wouldn't have, but I don't dwell in the past anymore. And then months passed, and I remember it was around like the 6-month mark at this point where he put his hands on me, he slapped me. I was like crying out of anger. I wasn't even mad that he slapped me. I was just like, no, I was mad that he slapped me, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, he slapped me. I was more angry that he did that. So I would cry out of anger, obviously, because what am I gonna do, slap him back? He was drunk too, so no excuse, but he was drinking and I didn't know what to think, but it did not cross my mind to leave him at all. I don't know why, but when I'm in love, like, I love till I can't no more. Keep in mind, nothing like that has ever happened to me before, so I didn't even know what to think at that point. So as time went by, I think after that he got really comfortable with putting his hands on me. I didn't even care that he was doing that. I just wanted to fix us. And I remember one time my sister had called me. She had told me something of like the end times, and I remember getting so scared because I knew living with that man before marriage wasn't right. I knew the lust in that relationship wasn't right, and I knew that. I felt conviction of that, but I was being disobedient, and I did not have a relationship with God, so I didn't know any better. I can say I knew what right and wrong was, but I didn't know like the deeper meanings of right and of wrong. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. So and so she kind of put it in my head that things were happening in the world that was aligning with God's purpose for the end times. And if you know, you know, but I was terrified because I'm like, God cannot come back and I'm in this lustful, abusive relationship. Like, I have to get right. Like, I have to fix myself. And I just remember being so scared because I'm like, I have never even opened my Bible at this point. I'm like 21 years old. So I remember at that point, I wasn't even doing Christian content. Your girl was very unmodest. Like, I would post the craziest stuff, but I wouldn't do it for male attention. I genuinely love fashion so much deeply. Looking back, I'm like, wow, like that's probably how I got a lot of followers. I literally thought it was the cutest thing ever. I'm like, my outfits are so cute. I remember after my sister had called me, that was the first time I ever opened my Bible. I opened it and I was like, what am I reading? I had no idea what I was reading. I remember being super confused and I was like, these words are like gibberish. Like I have no idea what it's saying. So confused. And I remember calling my dad and I'm like, hey dad, I want to start reading the Bible. What should I read? Like it's confusing. And he told me to read the Gospels. And if you guys don't know what the Gospels are, it's the New Testament, which is after Christ came and died for our sins. So it's John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So my dad specifically told me he highly recommended me to start reading John first. So I did. I got into John. I started doing research because I wanted to know what I was reading. I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, what is the point of even reading if I don't understand? I would go on YouTube and I finally found this movie that goes along with the book of John. It's literally if you're a visual learner, like that movie is perfect because it reads off the book of John. It's basically the book in a movie. That was probably the best thing I could have ever done. Like it helped me understand exactly what it was saying and what it meant. I'm gonna link that for you guys in the description because if you guys ever want to start reading the Bible and you guys don't know where to start, John is the most beautiful, perfect book to start because it shows who even Jesus is. If you guys are gonna want to build a relationship with God, you guys need to know who the Son is and who died for our sins and why we are forgiven. But even me, I didn't know what that truly meant until I studied myself and did my own research and even watched the movie. It really helped me understand the beautiful love of God. And I remember watching that and I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying so much because Jesus is so perfect and beautiful. It is very old, keep in mind, but it goes along with scripture. So very beautiful. I always knew it was kind of hard to understand, especially as a beginner, but I always remember this verse. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And that is Jesus saying when you truly seek God through faith, prayer, and a sincere heart, you will find him. After I finally started opening up my Bible and reading it more, I remember finally posting about God. I wanted to tell everybody about him because I felt so much love for him in my heart, especially after reading John. I feel like that little tiny seed my parents planted in me when I was young finally started growing, but I still wasn't living in the way God wanted me to. So I also did feel that guilt. So I basically was in that relationship, probably like a year passed, and the relationship was just getting worse and worse as time went on. Yeah, of course, we still had beautiful moments, but he was very abusive towards me a majority of the relationship. We ended up moving again to be closer to his job. Things only got worse there. Nothing I did would please him because I would try everything. I just wanted to feel loved and I wanted him to be loved and I just wanted to fix us in any way possible. And I really did believe that me reading the word and me praying for us would fix us. And I also think I was holding on to the first few months that we had because they were so fun and beautiful and I was just in love. One of his best friends at the time did not like me at all and did everything in his power to break us up pretty much from the very beginning to the end, and that put me down in such a deep depression because my man at the time would listen to him. And I was always so fearful that he was going to go cheat on me when he was with them. And then we would argue and fight and then he would be abusive towards me. So there was no winning for me. But I do remember, you know, I would continue to pray for him. I would continue to pray for his friend. And that's how I knew my heart changed because I was so angry with his best friend at the time. He was so mean. He would call me out of my name and that hurt because I don't like anyone calling me out of my name. I don't know, that crosses the line for me because that's so disrespectful. And I'm only bringing up his best friend because he had a big part of our relationship lives. He definitely tried ruining it, but I came to realize later that all that had to happen and I am okay with it now. At the time, it definitely was very bad and I thought I would never get out of it. I also want to say if you're a guy watching this and your guy friend has a girlfriend, don't be jealous. Don't try breaking them up just because you want to spend more time with them. Make sure to always pray for your guy friends, your girlfriends, and their significant others to make sure they have good hearts and pray that if they're not for them, that God will remove them. It's also very important to be kind to your friend's significant other because you never know if they get married. And not even just that, be kind. To be kind. That can cause a lot of problems in relationships and I wouldn't even see why you guys would even want to break them up in the first place. I cannot remember the exact time it started happening, but I do remember he started choking me, like putting his full strength on my throat. If you have ever been in an abusive, toxic relationship, you will see the signs from the very beginning. And obviously I seen the signs, but I didn't even know. I've never been in a relationship like that, so I didn't know those were red flags. But I'm here to tell you, if you are in a relationship, and you see red flags like that, immediately leave. That is not normal, and that is not from God. And I remember I felt like I was already too deep into this relationship that I didn't want to leave because I was so in love. That is not love. And at the time, I didn't know any better. I remember every single time he would put his hands on me, he would be like, I'm sorry, and he would start crying, and then he would take me to go eat because he knew that seafood made me happy. It's actually just like, I'm laughing at how crazy it sounds because I would forgive him every single time. I remember one day he had choked me so hard. We had got in a big argument and he took his whole anger out on me. A few hours later, my throat started hurting. It felt like a sore throat and I was terrified. Not even that he put his hands on me. I was terrified of dying. Like I said, I have a fear of death, so I was so scared that I was gonna die from that. And I remember searching it up on Google, and it says if someone chokes you very hard, that you actually can get a sore throat. And I did. So I know now that when that stuff's happening to you, you don't realize what it's doing to you until later on. I was going through a lot of stress at that time. I had no one to talk to about it, so I kept it in. Keep in mind, my parents did not live in the same state as me. So I finally opened up to his mom, and his mom basically tried helping me in the beginning, but I think as it started going on and on, she kind of started saying, well, why are you with him? Kind of like it's your fault. She wouldn't really say or do much. All she can do is talk to him. And there would be times where I would just like, I stopped telling her because she could not help me. She basically told me like, I can't help you anymore. One day I had a panic attack and I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was a heart attack. I went to the hospital. And I remember them telling me I had a panic attack and I have anxiety, and they diagnosed me with all this stuff that I had no idea. I didn't even know it was real. My mind wasn't all there with what was happening, but my body was giving me signs. And my left arm would hurt, my body would go numb, my hands and my feet would start sweating out of nowhere, my heart would start beating super fast. I had so many symptoms. This started happening every other day out of nowhere. So when that stuff would happen to me, it caused me to stress out even more. In all of this, I was also trying to make YouTube videos because that was the only job that I had, and I enjoyed it so much, but I just genuinely could not be so consistent in doing so because I was just going through so much at home. There was a point where I was pretty consistent for a little bit, and I was also hiding the fact that I was going through some things. Out of nowhere, I started waking up super tired and fatigued, and I would get my 8 hours of sleep, and I'm like, why am I still tired? And I would get frustrated. Later on, I realized that it was depression. At this point, my relationship with God was doing so well. I started seeking him more. The doctor started prescribing me with anxiety pills, and they told me that it would heal me for a little bit. It would calm me down. And I remember just saying, nope, Jesus will heal me when the time is right. I knew it was just in his perfect timing. But one thing I was not doing was being obedient and leaving this man. I was doing everything but leaving. I started feeling like this is not the relationship God would want me in. I had to realize that it was by my own choices that I was going through these things as I didn't want to leave when God was trying to help me and pull me out. But I wanted to satisfy my own flesh. I wanted to satisfy my own desires. I wanted what I wanted, and I was like, God, I love you, but this is what I want. I'm gonna hold on to it. I was trying to put this person above God. When you idolize things, God will allow things to happen so that person or thing will be removed from your life because God does not come second. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in a future. So at the time, that's what I wanted. And I'm like, God, please, like, fix us. I'll do anything, but God already set out what he had for me, and it was not that person. So I stood with him for a few more months after that. The panic attacks got so bad that it started happening every other day, if not every day. Whether he was with me or not, I was always alone while going through this. And I remember when I was actually alone and he was at work, I would just want to go to the hospital every single time. And when I tell you guys my hospital bills racked up, my parents had came to visit me in California one time, and I had such a bad panic attack that I'm like, take me to the hospital, like I'm gonna pass out right now, and I would freak out. My parents woke up at 3 a.m. and took me to the hospital, and I remember they were like, what's going on? Like, this isn't you. You look different. I was super sucked up. I was super skinny, you guys. I think I was like 105 pounds at this point. Everything changed because I was completely lost. I didn't even look like myself. I don't know why, but I ended up just telling her, and I just remember the look on her face was unexplainable. It makes me so sad. Like, I don't even want to cry, but it just makes me so sad, like the look on her face. And then from then I just felt so guilty that I was still with him, knowing I was hurting my parents. You know, she ended up telling my dad. Fast forward to I finally got out of that relationship like a month or two later. I still wasn't ready to leave after I told my parents. But at this point, one morning, I was just like, I'm out. Like, I cannot do this anymore. Honestly believe if it wasn't for the panic attacks, I would have still been in that relationship because of how much I was so soul tied with this man. And that is why it is so important to not live with someone before marriage or do the things that you're not supposed to do before marriage. It causes you to become one with that person. And I did not realize that until I started getting closer to God. I had moved back to Washington for like 4 months to go heal because I knew I didn't want to live back in Washington. I wanted to move back to LA, even if it was by myself. I was so depressed. It felt as if the other half of me got ripped apart because the Lord knows I didn't even want to leave this man. And if you guys think about it, a heartbreak is literally like grieving someone that's still alive. So it's really crazy to think about, but I always seen breakups that way because I was so heartbroken and in such a dark place. Who did I go to? I went straight. I didn't even walk. I ran to the Lord because I wanted to feel some type of peace. I felt so dizzy all the time, fatigue. So my hands were sweaty, my feet were sweaty. There's this verse that stood out to me at that time. It's in Psalms 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And in 2 Corinthians 12:9, my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. And this is where I learned that God works the best in our darkest times. So in Washington, I still didn't even know what God was doing in my life. I just knew that He was there for me. Even when I didn't feel Him, I knew He was there. In that dark time is where I truly had to put my entire trust in Him, even when I didn't feel Him near. Every single morning, I would worship, watch sermons, I would read the Word. I did everything that I possibly could to find Him, and I still didn't feel Him in that dark time. I'm like, well, God, what are you doing? Where are you at? Why do I still have panic attacks? Why am I still going through this? I need to get out of this. Like, why am I so weak? Why am I so fatigued? I didn't see what He was doing until later I did. Eventually, after the 4th month of living in Washington, I knew I wanted to move back to LA because I started getting my energy back, and I'm like, okay, God, I really want to move back. Can you please provide? Because I didn't even have a job. I didn't know what to do. I was like, Lord, please, if this is meant for me, provide for me. And one day I just got my car and I moved back. 2 weeks later, I got a job. And then a month or two later, I got an apartment in downtown LA. And that's where you guys probably seen my apartment tour on YouTube. At this time, I remember getting a text from my ex, and then we started talking again, and I started being disobedient again. Although I didn't end up dating him, we were still friends for about another year, because I didn't even want to let him go after that, because I'm like, oh my God, I missed you. You know, I got tied back into that and it was hard to leave again. But this time I was stronger. After a year of still going through manipulation, but this is because of my own choices. I chose to talk to him again. Finally, I decided to let go of the friendship. And as soon as I let go, you guys, I cannot even explain. My life got so much better. The first time I surrendered and I had to move back to Washington, I didn't fully surrender because I was still holding on in some type of way. And this time feels so different because after the year, when I truly let go, everything that my flesh had desired, I no longer cared for. As soon as I let go, it took a little bit of a while, but I started noticing a change in me. Everything that wasn't good for me, I wanted it out of my life. I struggled so much with modesty. You guys have no idea. That was probably one of my biggest struggles, and I still struggle with that. I've gotten so much better within the past few months, but God has been molding and shaping me every single day because I truly surrendered my whole heart to Him. If I didn't go through what I went through, I would never be who I am today. God gave me so many warnings and so many chances, and I chose not to be obedient in those times. And He's still gracious and He still changed my life. And God loves us no matter how far we have gone astray. He will always bring us back on track if we seek Him. I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. And I also did struggle with a lot of things on my own besides the relationship. But it is by the grace of God that I do not desire those things anymore. One thing I realized is when you truly surrender to God, those things that you used to desire, you don't desire them anymore. When you come to God, you don't have to be perfect. You come as you are. God actually wants you to come as you are. Do not run from God. That is when God is calling you the most. So in your darkest times, Run to God. Do not walk. Run. And I can promise you, you will find him if you seek him with all your heart. I am living proof of that. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. God bless.